Now, Talk Real Estate, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services.
Hi, I'm Sharon McNamara, and you are listening to Talk Real Estate. Let me share a little bit about my background before we get started. I am the broker-owner of Boston Connect Real Estate, located on the South Shore, and I have been working as a full-time realtor and sales and marketing consultant for home buyers and home sellers for the past 15 years. My unique approach to assisting my clients to the next chapter of their lives is driven by being a team player and by offering them continuous training, education, advising, and mentoring. Every week, I will be providing you with real estate topics ranging from home buyer and home seller advice, legal matters, insurance binders, flood insurance concerns, home inspection questions, environmental worries like radon, lead paint, and mold, mortgages and loan programs, staging tips and ideas, real estate contracts, market trends, home values, and more. It's a talk radio show, and you can follow along online. If you have any questions during the show, please call 781-837-4900. We'd love to talk real estate. If you missed any of our shows, you can listen on my podcast at talkrealestateradio.com. If you would like a one-on-one consultation with me regarding your home sale or your home purchase, you can connect with me anytime at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate. Hello to all my South Shore neighbors. This is Sharon McNamara, and you are listening to Talk Real Estate with Sharon McNamara. Along with my team members, we have Melissa doing her thing here in the background, getting everything all set up on Facebook and all those great places where you can watch us live. We have some great guests with us tonight, so you're in for a good surprise tonight. We also have people zooming in with us. So we have our other team member, Dustin Hughes, is joining us from Boston. Hello there, Dustin.
Hello.
Hey, Dustin, I got to tell you, it really does look like you have a fake background there with all those plants. You certainly have a green thumb for sure. So good for you. It looks like the weather is nice in Boston. And weirdly, Lisa Cullity is not in studio today. She is doing her job to help us have some social distancing. And I'm sure you have some great updates for us as well.
Sure do.
Right? Perfect. And I know Ken said that he was going to log in, so I'm not sure how familiar he is with Zoom in the way we
very.
Okay.
He's a veteran with me.
Okay.
But he did have another Zoom, so he could be getting out of that and getting back in here. So
okay, perfect. So we'll have Ken McCormick, who is the acting chief of the fire department right now in Pembroke. So he's been with us. Lise, what is this, like our 11th week?
Yeah, actually, we could be at 12. No, I think this is 11. Next week will be 12. We'll be 12 weeks in.
The record continues.
So, you've been with us every week and we've been talking about COVID. And yes, this is a Talk Real Estate radio show. We did, a couple weeks ago, took a little bit of a break from everything, and we did talk real estate because there are a lot of impacts. One of the things I've noticed is the impact on every single industry. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. COVID has had some type of a impact. I can hear Lisa. I mean, Ben, are you trying to get us, Ben? All right. Thank you, Ben. So it is one of the things where it doesn't matter what industry you pull out, it is going to affect everybody. I was saying earlier to our two in-house guests, I'm not going to give away their names yet, that my daughter actually graduated from BU Law School this past weekend, and we didn't really have anything planned. We just thought, we'll just have a little cookout with us. And then I talked to her that morning and I could hear like the disappointment. It's like, can you imagine going 4 years at Notre Dame and Hingham so you could get into a good college? You go to Fairfield University, 4 years, you graduate top of your class. Then you go to 3 years at BU Law School, 25th percentile of your class. And then at the end of all that, all you dare to do is wear a funny looking hat and a robe with a big thing on the back, a big hood. So we did an impromptu, I think within 3 hours, we put together a graduation ceremony for her. So I gave my first commencement speech. I thought it was pretty good. And there's Mary. Mary is now home. She doesn't live too far from here. So she was here earlier when we had our guests. So Mary will be joining us as well.
And we do have Lisa DeMilo standing by as well, Sharon.
All right, perfect. So another regular every week is Lisa DeMilo from the WATD Traffic Center. She's going to let us know how the traffic is. And Lisa, I'm very curious, 11 weeks ago, we asked you, hey, are you seeing the traffic lighten up? Are you starting to see it maybe pick up a little bit more, maybe with some summer people going down the Cape, or maybe people starting to go back to work a little bit?
Oh, absolutely, Sharon. We're seeing a gradual increase in volume every week for the past couple of weeks. And I'm noticing this week. So Oh, you can't hear me? Okay. Well, we're seeing that gradual increase in traffic. And this week, we actually saw some backups on the expressway southbound and on Route 3. So it is definitely picking up. The expressway is a 9-minute ride in either direction between Boston and Braintree. Route 3, no issues getting to the food stores right off the exits in Hingham, Hanover, or Pembroke. The Sagamore and the Bourne are both delay-free. Route 24 is a 16-minute ride either way between 93 and 495. This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams of being part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own. Unbound.org. Traffic on the 9s every morning. I'm Lisa DeMilo in the WATD Traffic Center.
We now return to Talk Real Estate, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services on 95.9 WATD.
I love all the applause. I think it has something to do with our guests that we have here tonight. So we are back. You are listening to Talk Real Estate with Sharon McNamara and my team members. Again, I am Melissa Wallace here with me tonight. And we have all of our people joining us via Zoom, so you can see us live on Facebook as well. So tonight we have the honor again of having Mr. Tim Cruz with us. So thank you so much for being here again. You were here just a few weeks ago?
Yes, I was. Nice to be here.
And so for people who don't know who he is, I can't imagine that that's actually a thing, but he is the Plymouth County DA, right? District Attorney, obviously. And you were with us a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at our agenda for tonight, and there are things on there. When you first came earlier, I was like, things that we're not thinking about. And this is what I was just saying about COVID. It's like it is taking a role in certain things that we're not even aware of. And then we also have this evening with us for the first time, we have Mr. Joseph McDonald, who is the Plymouth County Sheriff. Is that, am I supposed to say the High Sheriff or something?
The Sheriff is just fine. Actually, Joe is just fine.
Joe is just fine? Okay.
Just Joe.
Just Joe. So you have no idea what you're in for tonight, Joe. So just Joe. So that's what we're going to do when we're out in the street now. From now on, we're going to say, yeah, well, our new friend, just Joe.
Yeah, we'll just like, Joe was in the office. We're talking about it. Just Joe. Oh,
yeah,
no,
just
Hi,
Joe.
Sarah.
Just Joe. Exactly. So, Mel, can you actually, one of the things is I don't think that we have the right microphone in for you. So I'm going to switch with you and take care of that. So you can do a little more introductions here.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now everyone can hear me. So tonight we're going to be continuing on, with our COVID update. And Tim, we got a lot of great feedback after our show with you a couple of weeks ago. Everyone was super interested. I know I was very interested in the topics that we were talking about. And we're going to be incorporating Joe into that continuation of what we were talking about, especially with the prisons and everything that's sort of going to be happening. And now that the governor made his announcement yesterday, and we're starting to roll out into phase 1. We're going to be talking about all that fun stuff, but we're going to have Josh Cutler joining us again. He's been joining us for the past 11 weeks. He's the Mass State rep for the 6th district, right? It's the 6th.
6th Plymouth District, yep.
6th Plymouth District. I'm like a tongue twister tonight. It's what she said. So he'll be joining us around 6:30. But if you're listening to us, on WATD on 95.9, okay, here's my microphone now. We're actually on Facebook too. So if you want to go, you can to any of the Connect pages, or you can go to Boston Connect Real Estate or the McNamara Broker Team. You can watch us live via Zoom on there. But yeah, so we have a few minutes before Josh joins us. So we do have a list of things that we wanted to talk to you guys about. Let me just find it in my pile over here, and I'll just continue to sing until I find it. That's what I'm looking for.
Singing voice.
Did somebody steal it? No, it's okay. Oh, you found your glasses. Perfect. So we have a couple minutes before Josh joins us. So where do we sort of want to start? Have there been any sort of new developments in your everyday sort of tasks or what's going on here in Plymouth County since the last time you've been on the show? You want to update any of our listeners of sort of what's going on?
Sure. I mean, thanks. Once again, thanks for having myself here tonight. I appreciate it. And, just getting the word out as to what we do and what's going on in this very unusual time that we're dealing with. So right now, the courts in Plymouth County remain closed, and they will be till approximately June 1. As to how open they're going to be, we're really not sure. And our jury trials are pretty much been stopped until July 1. And I'm hopeful that they'll get up and running around that time.
Yeah.
Whether it actually will, we're not sure, because the courts still have to go through. I mean, we come in here, you guys are disinfecting everything. Imagine a building the size of either Brockton, Plymouth, Wareham, or Hingham, and trying to keep that clean, and also making sure that all the people that come in are going to be sanitary and that are going to be able to keep social distance and wear masks if appropriate, which I believe will probably be happening when public buildings are open again to the public.
Do they know what phase that is? I wasn't paying attention. Sorry, I was too concerned about when my hairdresser was going in. What phase my hairdresser was in was more important to me.
Well, I think that right now I don't think we're in a phase per se. We've been getting our orders from the Supreme Judicial Court. They have standing orders regarding which courts open and which courts closed. And what we've been seeing over the last few weeks is like here in Plymouth County, Wareham was closed for a couple of days because they wanted to clean it because somebody had been in contact with somebody who had COVID. And then Brockton was closed. So it's been ongoing rotations. When you look at the courthouses, you'll see cleaning companies. So they're cleaning those places out, making sure that they can be sanitary so the people are going to be in a position where they're going to be safe.
Well, and I think that that's the hard thing, too, because I was talking to somebody about schools, and he's one of the, the head maintenance person at one of the schools locally and in Braintree school systems, and think about all the kids that you have there. And I said, what are your thoughts about kids going back to school? And I'm sure Lisa has some thoughts on that, too. And he's like, I just don't know how we're going to control it, because it would probably cost us about $200,000 to fully sanitize that place from top to bottom. You can't do that every day. You couldn't, it's not cost effective. And he said, how do you control 700 children who are trained to charge at the bell every 45 minutes? Like they're just charging into the hallways. So even if they do staggered things, but that's how it is with the public. Let's face it, you're talking about courthouses. Is everybody that's walking through there sort of going to be honest? I'm sure that they're there for things that they're not honest about. So you could have people who are sick. I mean, they'd probably have to temperature check and things.
Well, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if something that happens. I know, like in my office, my main office is across the street at Brockton District Court. Yeah. And we just purchased the temperature handguns. I was taking my temperature today to get everybody's temperature in the building. And it was at the same time, was still, people are working remotely with social distancing, but people coming getting their files and they're leaving because they're trying not to have more than 10 in the building, even though it's still 30,000 square feet. But you just want to do what we're supposed to do, abide by the rules and regulations that are there, and see where we're going to fall as we proceed right now. And the court system itself, the arraignments are still going on. There are hearings, but for the most part, the hearings still are telephonic or video. And they're doing our arraignments that way, and also our bail reviews with the people who are trying to get out of jail who are being held right now.
We can't wait to talk about that.
Some of them are incredibly dangerous. Right now, they're with Sheriff McDonald, and in my opinion, that's where the most of them should stay. Honestly. But,
Can I ask just Joe a question? You look such like a teddy bear to me. Is that okay for me to say for the biggest guy, like the big cheese? You know what I mean? But like, you have a big job too. I mean, and that's one of the things, Tim, that I was talking to you. I was so impressed with, meeting you for the first time. Obviously, I've seen you in different places and, your talks on just your passion for what you're doing and keeping people safe. It just gave me another level, to, make me proud that I did vote for you, right? But, I both of you have such, important jobs. And that's why with all this COVID, one of the things I'm really interested in talking to you about is, and I'm going to call you Sheriff Joe for right now, Sheriff McDonald, is the situation with everything that's going on in the prisons and people trying to let some of them come out. I know we have Josh actually joining us now, so that's going to be our little teaser, but I'm sure you have a lot to talk about with that type of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Don't get me fired up. The Dorchester and me only lasts so long.
Yeah, Josh is actually here.
Look at Lisa up there smiling like she knows. She's like, I've seen it. So, but we do have Josh Cutler. You want to introduce Josh for us?
Well, I had the tongue twister earlier. I'm not going to be able to say his title.
Pro tip, guys, just say Pembroke Duxbury Hanson. It's a lot easier.
Pembroke Duxbury Hanson. There you go. There's Josh Cutler.
He's our state rep. So before, I just have to tell everybody, Josh. So Josh has been a trooper. He's been with us every week. I say, we get our little update on the Hill up there. And he has this nice background. So I said to Melissa and Mary, I said, this week, I think that we should get like the Oval Office and put that behind us. So Josh is up in the Oval Office. So,
I like it. Well, you've upgraded your guests too. You have Tim and Lisa and Joe and an all-star cast. So I feel privileged to be part of this.
Yes, and we're very happy to have you. And again, Josh, we can't thank you enough because people say to me every week that they love to tune in because they do like getting that sort of personal update of what's happening locally rather than watching it on the national news or, the bigger stuff with Boston. So can you tell us a couple things happened this week, huh? The governor had something to say?
Did, yeah. Yeah, no, well, obviously everyone probably has heard the news by now about the reopening Massachusetts plan. I encourage folks who want to review the whole document. It's posted online at mass.gov. It's a PDF document you can download. Chock full of information. I know everybody has questions about, their particular business or where they work and what phase that might be in or possibly how could it be in a different phase. That's been a lot of the...
funny. People are asking you if they can switch phases.
They have, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We're eager to see like the gyms open up and...
Well, it's funny you said that. Actually, I'm working with a couple fitness trainers in our district here locally that, they're sort of lumped in with gyms, which obviously, there's a concern about gyms, obviously, because there's a lot of people using equipment and so forth. And that's set for phase 3, whereas personal training is more of a personal service that maybe doesn't belong in that bucket. And so that was their argument. And so we're trying to get that communicated to the folks on the reopening.
Well, and I think that does make sense because personal trainers, when you do go to one, it's a one-on-one sort of session. So, when do like massage therapists and things like that come into play?
I believe that, I have my handy dandy, I think that was phase 2. Yes, phase 2. I have a chart here. And the other thing I would advise folks is if you go to mass.gov, there's a reopening, when can my business reopen page?
And we printed that out just so we can figure out when I can get my nails done.
Well, for me, the guys, it was the haircut.
Yeah.
So what are some of the other situations that are happening? Do you feel like with the openings and everything overall, do you think it's been sort of, positive and everybody? I know I had a big meeting today with all of our, agents, letting them know what our policies are going to be. And
via Zoom. We didn't have everybody here.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Yeah.
They set strict office policies in place.
That's good. Well, that's good. Yeah. I think there's some anxiety, I would say, some frustration, some relief. It's a combination of emotions. And I hear from colleagues of mine that are adamant that we shouldn't reopen at all. And I also hear from colleagues of mine that think this is far too slow and we need to be more aggressive about reopening. And so, I'm sure Governor Baker's in a really tough spot. And, I genuinely think he's doing making the best decisions he can. I know it's frustrating and there's probably little places here and there where we could certainly nitpick. But, I think he's trying to do the best he can based on the data. And that's what it comes back to. So,
I think he obviously wants everybody to be safe. And I think that that's the top priority. And he's in a position that he's in because he does have to make those tough decisions. He's not there, I hate to say it, to make friends. He's there to take care of us. And, when I tell my daughter not to touch a hot stove when she was 4, it was because I didn't want her to get hurt, Right.
Absolutely. No. And so I would just say, and I want to give the other folks a chance to chime in, but for anybody who's a worker or employee, employer, there's a portal on the mass.gov website now where you can submit feedback about, whether it's maybe a place you work where you don't maybe feel like they're properly following the guidance, or maybe you're a small business and feel like you're put in the wrong phase and think you should be in a different phase. I can promise you they are listening to that, and it is worth taking the time to submit your feedback. They have a whole process. I learned a little bit more about what was going on today. There were 78 different groups representing all different kinds of businesses that presented to the advisory panel. They had a consultant who was hired to go through every single comment and digest it and make a report that all the panel members could review. So, those comments that people are submitting, will reach the right folks and will have an impact. And so it is worth making the time to do that. And I would recommend and encourage anyone who's is happy or sad or anywhere in between to take the time to share those comments.
And too, I do think that it trickles down to the local level because, not when you're making these decisions, it really does impact so many things. I know last week, Ken and Lisa and I were talking after the show and, okay, so when that phase happens, when they're going to allow restaurants to have outside seating. All right, well, that's great for, Lisa, how many was it? Are there like 4 or 5 that have it in Pembroke?
Yeah. There's only a few businesses. There's a whole permitting process for any business in any town that wants to do outside seating. There's zoning considerations, liquor considerations, and suitability. So there's only about 10 I can think of that have properly permitted outdoor seating in Pembroke. And obviously because of the density of 25%, that's going to be a little low per a lot of business models. So they're going to want significantly more than that. And one of the ways that they can generate more safe seating is to have outdoor seating. So Pembroke is templating and we're 50% of the way there of what a fast track one-stop application to get additional temporary, very key word there, temporary outdoor seating available to those restaurants, and so they have an opportunity to raise the total number of people at their establishment to a point where it is profitable for them to be open and doing business and allow them to recover from this setback.
When do the restaurants get to do that? So they'll start with outside seating and then they'll follow.
Phase 2 is 25%. The fast track seating, that's going to be town by town because every town has different zoning regs. Like I said, Pembroke, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm very lucky to work with people that are all very goal-orientated and like-minded and very much want our business communities to succeed. So there's been buy-in from every level of our government across the board to create this fast-track program for those restaurants that want to do some outdoor, and it doesn't have to be super fancy, picnic-style seating. I know some of them are going much more elaborate, and that's wonderful for them. And for those that don't, they don't have to. It just has to be safe and sanitary. That's all we're asking. And they'll have that opportunity within phase 2 to apply for our outdoor seating.
Can I ask, Josh, maybe you know the answer to this question too. So my younger daughter, Mackenzie, she's 24, so whatever, she's not really young anymore, but she's down at Clemson. So she works at the university there. And she was talking to me the other day, and I just found this odd, but I don't know if we are doing it or if we're going to do it. And she said that you can go, like if you were going to Longhorns, you could get your dinner and then you can get a margarita to go, and they put it in a to-go cup and like with a straw, and then you drive off in it. So, all right, well, here we have the people who are going to arrest you.
Not in Massachusetts.
You can get the mix, but you can't get the tequila. I know that.
Yes,
you can't. You can do beer and wine.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. That was legislation that we passed. It seems like eons ago. It was only probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that is in effect now for local restaurants with beer and wine, but I don't believe that extends to margaritas. Although
when you can't have open containers in the car.
It's the open container that exactly.
Right.
It has to be sealed. Everything that leaves the premise have to be sealed.
Yeah, I'm actually the word. You should be talking. You have experts sitting next to you, Sharon.
Sorry, I know that these are the ones that arrest you after you guys make the rules. So I mean,
they have to live with them, so they know better than we do sometimes.
Yeah. Well, she couldn't believe it. I mean, her job at Clemson is, she's the associate director of Drug and Alcohol Initiative and Mental Health Awareness. So, to have such a role at such a young age, she's doing statistics on all this stuff. And she's like, and I cannot believe that you can now get in your car with a margarita. So, yeah, we've been hearing a lot of different stories with different people, like on Fridays having drive by my house and you can come get a drink and all kinds of things like that. And people are pulling up to their driveways and driving off. Like, I don't think that's really safe, right?
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, that's what Just Joe said. So Josh, what about, how's everything going with the PPP loan, unemployment? Everything seemed to be just sort of trucking along with all that?
Yeah, in fact, so on the PPP, actually, I wanted to mention that because believe it or not, there's still, talking about the payroll protection program, there is still funding available. For all the talk about running out and so forth, there is still funding available. And, of course, if you're a small business now that, where some businesses are moving towards reopening, it may make sense for some businesses to look at that again. If you were totally shut and not having any income and not having any staff, it might not have been a good fit. But now that that's changing, it is something you might want to take a look at. So the PPP loans, which you go through your local lender for, still have funding. In terms of unemployment, that is, thankfully, that has slowed down quite a bit, at least for our office. We were getting, tons of inquiries and working with a lot of cases at once. And most of those, I would say almost, the vast majority of those cases have been resolved and people are, getting their benefits now. So obviously, happy that everyone's on unemployment, but happy that they're, at least getting it. So that is slowed down for sure.
What about the unemployment? So how is that working? So I know that everybody's getting that additional $600. I guess one of the bigger concerns that I'm hearing from employers now that they are opening because they have the PPP loan is, they have part-time employees that are saying, hey, is there any way that you can pay me under the table because I make more money on unemployment than I actually make when I'm working? So is that something that you've been hearing about?
So specifically for the PPP loan, the SBA did come out with a ruling on that. If you have an employee who, may be making more money temporarily, on unemployment, which is maybe the case, and they don't wish to come back, you can have, as long as you document that and have them sign something saying they don't wish to come back at this time, you're covered, and you can count their payroll towards your forgiveness.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that was a ruling that the SBA came out with to handle just precisely that situation.
And does it end at a certain time?
So the $600 is not forever. The precise date is it's in July. I forget the exact date, but that's through the pandemic, the Federal CARES Act funding. There's talk in Congress about extending that. I don't know if that will happen or not, but for right now, that is a short-term extra source of money.
So on the local level with the towns that you're dealing with, again, your Hanson, Pembroke, and Duxbury, I'm sure this is a big time. I heard the two of you talking earlier, like budgets. You were working on budgets and things like that. How are things looking for the towns, and, what can we expect to happen? See, Lisa,
not good.
Lisa, I think better.
Not good.
And the sheriff and the district attorney can attest to that. It's a tough time, partially because it's uncertainty. We really don't know, have we hit the bottom yet? Are we climbing back up or not? It's really hard to say right now. And we've talked about the different shapes of, what kind of recovery will this look like? Will it be, the V bounce back, the, more gradual U, the L, or other shapes we've talked about. So, we really don't know yet. And until we have a better sense of that, it's hard to say. So what we're trying to do from the state point of view is to give, our municipal officials and our county and other state officials kind of the tools to help get us through this period in terms of, short-term budgeting, 1/12 budgets, things like that. We obviously have, federal funds through the CARES Act that are flowing through to the county and to the state. That will help to, fill the gap somewhat. Yeah. But it's clear it's going to be a tough budget year. We're looking at somewhere around a $5 to $6 billion shortfall from the state point of view. Hopefully that will be made up partially by the federal government, but, we can't always count on that.
Yeah. And I know too, it's not just towns, so I don't want to pick on, I'm not picking on towns. I'm just bringing it up, but I also am noticing now I remember last week I had talked, and Josh, there was something wrong with whatever happened last week. Sorry about that. But, I'm starting to see smaller companies, small mom and pop shop businesses, they're just not making it, and their doors are already closed. And I'm seeing more and more of these commercial real estate signs pop up all over the place. But then today I was actually surprised to hear that, UMass Amherst is furloughing all their staff for 5 days. So everybody's trying to do whatever they can to sort of make up some of it. But I'm sort of worried about the universities come fall. I talked to my daughter about it, and she just isn't even sure what's going to happen yet at Clemson.
Yeah, no, my fiance's son is going to UMass Amherst he's graduating right now. So, and we're just talking about this very issue. Is he going to go off to an empty dorm, or is he going to be doing remote classes? It's
Yeah. Just so many things for us to watch. So maybe I'll have my daughter Mackenzie come on with us next week. I actually saw this morning something on the Today Show with Notre Dame was on, and I guess their plan is to test everybody, when they go to the school, but then not let them leave for Thanksgiving, because what they're afraid of is if they can get everybody there and sort of have that in controlled environment, sort of like I would say herd environment there, right? Keeping all the students in one place. Then if they go home for Thanksgiving, then they potentially are going to run into, catching something and bringing it back to campus. So maybe not letting them leave at Thanksgiving and making them go through the end of the semester. And then they were, talking to the high priest there, what his name was. But then, you know what everybody wanted to know? The only question they cared about was, is there going to be football? So Josh, if you could work on that and see what phase is that?
I don't know. I think we should ask the sheriff or the DA about that one.
Yeah. So, Josh, were there any other points that you would like to bring up to our listeners here at WATD?
No, actually, if I can, a plug for a good event that we're doing on Thursday. It's a bit of a different topic than what we were just talking about, but I'm hosting a forum on disability workforce issues. A lot of people who have disabilities in the workplace, a lot of issues that come up because of COVID that are specific to them. In terms of if you get a stimulus payment, does that mean you're going to lose some of your benefits because you may not qualify still? So we have some experts from the Disability Law Center and some other groups that I'm doing a special show on this Thursday at 10:30.
And where will that be aired? Where can we watch that?
That's going to be on PAC TV, streamed live, but it's actually also going to be rebroadcast on the Talking Information Center, which is obviously the sister station of WATD.
Oh, all right. Perfect. Yeah, great. I definitely want to watch that. I didn't get to watch the last one that you had done. I had another appointment, but and that's what I mean. That's just yet another thing that we have to be thinking about. And I would think, I was actually talking to my sister-in-law, and my father-in-law is 97 years old, World War II vet, and his birthday was last week. And we can't visit him. No one can go near him. And she has a job in the summer. She works at the MDC down in Hull and at the beach. And she went to his doctor and said, well, I'm supposed to start my job on Monday. And he's like, absolutely, positively not. You are his primary caretaker right now. It's literally just her and her husband, my brother-in-law, taking care of him. So now she can't go to work because of that. So I'm like, well, I hope you can get unemployment. Like, how would that work? Because she's sort of given up her position, but to take care of an elderly person.
There's got to be something that allots for that in the Unemployment Act. Like if you cannot, I think for unemployment, it says if you cannot perform your job because of COVID-19, which essentially is the case for her, right? So she can't go to her normal workplace because she has somebody at home. That's correct. Acceptable.
Oh, look at that, Mary. So if things don't work out for you in real estate, you can always take Cole's job, right?
Sorry, was that just directed towards Josh?
Yeah.
Did I take the words right out of your mouth? Melissa said you guys couldn't hear me, so I needed to speak up.
Yeah, no. That's great. All right, so Josh, tell everybody again on WATD. So that is going to be Thursday at?
Thursday at 10:30, and it'll be streamed on PAC TV, pactv.org/live.
All right, perfect. And you know what we should do, Josh, is maybe we can connect at some point too if somebody else is there with you. I don't know if Cole goes with you, but I could make him an admin on Pembroke Connect if you want to stream it live on Pembroke Connect as well. Okay. You know what? You can feel free to do that. And Hanson Connect and Duxbury Connect.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a great idea.
Put it on Dorchester Connect if you want. I don't care where you put it.
Yeah, it's statewide stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Josh, thank you so much again. You're welcome to stay if you have any question for our guests tonight or
we got some great guests. Give them a chance to weigh in. So absolutely.
They're going to have a full whole hour of us drilling them right now. So, do you guys have any questions for him before Josh takes off?
No, Josh did a great job. We're glad to hear everything's going fine at the State House.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thanks, Josh.
Good to see you, Josh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Josh.
So we have just about 10 minutes until we take our 7:00 break, and then we just have to do some news stuff for WATV. It's just the way that it works. And we have a couple things what we'll do now. So I want to we'll ask you a couple of questions, and maybe Lisa, do you have any questions for Just Joe and Tim? If anyone's just calling in, listening right now, they're like, Who is she talking about?
Just shout out. It's a free for all.
Yeah. Lisa, do you have any questions for them or no?
I would only be curious with the new state released staffing levels at 25%. Obviously, I understand the sheriff's department is essential and such like that. I'd just be curious as to their thoughts about implementation as they start to slowly bring back what wouldn't be considered 24/7 or completely essential staff, how they're planning on tackling that issue. Because I know we're having a lot of discussion at the town level within town hall and trying to roll that back out. And it's proving challenging.
Well, it is very challenging, and perhaps even more so in a correctional setting. It's clear that, you know, most of the employees that we do have are essential. Our security staff is absolutely essential. But when you think about, you know, it was funny, Sharon, when I heard I was coming on a real estate show, my first thought was, I wonder what relevance I would have on a real estate show.
It's been nothing about real estate.
Yeah, no, but it occurred to me that I do manage a very large, very exclusive gated community in the seaside town of Plymouth. So maybe there's something I have to add.
It's housing of some sort.
Yeah, but we're like a town ourselves. So the way, you know, most of the services, food services are provided, you know, in-house. Correctional settings are nothing like you see on in the movies. There's a lot of reality shows now that seem to depict it perhaps a bit more accurately, but the old stuff that you see, like the Shawshank Redemption and those things, that's the old style. That's we limit movement. You know, all the services are brought to the inmates, and when you think about that, that's the food service, a lot of the counseling services that we have, a lot of the programming comes to the inmates. They get books from the library. There is some movement within the correctional facility, but very little. Because we found historically that if there were going to be problems in a correctional facility, they would be outside in the ball yard, you know, where everyone's lifting weights or playing ball, or at the chow hall. So most of that stuff is brought to the inmates in the unit.
At the what wall? Is that where they eat?
At the chow hall.
Chow hall.
Yeah.
Chow hall, where they eat.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought he said something about a wall.
Nope. Well, we have plenty of those too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's very it's different. It's modern, and it's new. And I mentioned of the reality shows. If you have occasion, and I invite you to come to tour it sometime, so you can see what it's all about down there. One of the things that always strikes me as odd is as I walk around, we have community television sets. People don't have their own TV sets.
Yeah.
And I'm curious sometimes as to what people are watching. So I'll kind of give it a look, and I see that they watch a lot of reality shows about jails.
Yeah, really?
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Are they trying to get some tricks?
I don't know. I want to go over and ask and say, well, how do we compare?
Yeah. So what do you think?
What's your experience like?
Yeah.
Well, you should say, well, things aren't so bad now. Are they?
Yeah, right. How do you like me now? But what we're doing, you know, our security staff has been pretty much intact as this whole process has gone on. But we have reduced very substantially our program staff. A lot of the volunteers have been completely excluded. And, you know, certain things like prison ministry, a lot of our teachers, the AA counselors that come down. So we've really struggled with some of that. And now we're going to come to grips with how do we start bringing them back in. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to rotate them. We're going to start that back very gradually, very slowly, and see how it goes from there. The good news is the sheriffs as a group, there are 14 of us in the Commonwealth. We started off with conference calls every single day.
Yeah.
We're down to 2 days a week now, but we're getting a lot done, and we're coordinating a lot of our efforts. The challenging thing for us really has been the fact that we didn't have policies and procedures to cover a pandemic. Or if we did, you know, they dated to 1918. So we're kind of making policy as we go. And the nice thing is we're able to do that together. And I think it's worked out very well.
That's one of the things that we've been saying over and over again. And it is sort of funny that you would come here for a real estate show. And we've just been really just concentrating on this because we really just want to be part of the community and get the information out that you're trying to get out and everybody else is trying to get out. And I know Ken McCormick, who is our deputy chief, he's actually our acting chief of the Pembroke Fire Department, has joined us now via Zoom. And so everyone can see him on Facebook and everything too. And all the equipment is working tonight. So it must have something to do with him not being in the building. I think he hit my wires.
We do miss you though, Ken.
We do miss you, Ken, for sure. But I know, Ken, that that's some of the things that, we were talking about before is, with your staffing and the worry and concern of, one of his guys ends up with, in a situation where potentially they're near somebody who has it or potentially caught it. That's a whole shift. So that has to be similar consequence
same
for
for
you.
us, exactly. Yeah, the benefit, the advantage that we have is the contact tracing is very easy for us because everything is on video.
Yeah.
So we're able, and the great thing, and knock on wood, we really haven't had any cases of COVID within the correctional facility.
That's right.
And I know there was a big hue and cry, release all the inmates, do it now. It's a cruise ship, it's a petri dish, all this stuff. And I was concerned, but I didn't think that was going to happen. We have, as we sit here today, we have 2 inmates who have tested positive. One of them has recovered, and the second one is in isolation. And that's where they didn't originate in the jail. They came to us with those infections.
Yeah.
And we have protocols now. We have negative pressure rooms. They're held in our medical unit. They're receiving medical care better than they would on the outside. So they're much safer there than they are on the outside. So to the people, the activists that think everyone should be released immediately, clearly, don't worry, people are doing well. And yesterday, as I drove into my office, there was not a large protest, but a group set up. They're all dressed in lab coats and scrubs, I think presumably to be medical people.
Yeah.
And this big sign said, "Free them all." And I was tempted to stop and say, "Are you folks aware that we don't have COVID here?"
I know.
So they could get COVID when they're around you guys?
Or even worse, what's happening is a lot of these people that have been released are going out, they are getting the virus and then being sent back.
Reoffended,
and being sent back.
So I have a question. The 2 that have tested positive, they came into the prison after the lockdown or when COVID?
After the lockdown,
okay.
yeah.
So they weren't already in the prison and got it somehow while there?
No, they got it while they were outside and brought it in. So, and we're dealing with that. And we put policies and procedures, all the sheriffs did, that we are quarantining individuals that are coming into us for a period of time for the 14 days before they're allowed to be reclassified and placed somewhere else. So anyone that shows symptoms, and we're also, a lot of the criticism we received, oh, you're not doing testing, that's why you're not getting positive results. The fact of the matter is we are and we have been. We are testing according to CDC and DPH guidelines, which is anyone that's symptomatic. And then a lot of the activists are like, well, you should be testing everybody. And well, that would be a great luxury, but I'm not testing everybody in my hometown, or at the supermarket. So it's just not feasible at this point in time. But I think we've done pretty well.
But I'm not even sure too that maybe, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if somebody came to you and just said, "Hey, I really do want to get tested," and maybe they could. Where even just I wanted to get tested, I couldn't. You know what I mean? Maybe I feel like they would have a better chance of being tested because they'll.
Yeah, you're probably right about that, because the advantage they would have over you, Sharon, is they're willing to sometimes, bend the truth a little bit.
Yeah.
And describe. So anybody that describes symptoms is getting tested.
Yeah.
No question about that. And then we have a lot of staff people. We try to keep on top of that, but a lot of them are going to their own doctors, and we don't necessarily know that they are. But we've had so far 3 individuals, 2 caseworkers, and 1 correctional officer who have tested positive. And again, the contact tracing is easy.
Yeah.
And
well, because does everyone have to sign in when you come in?
Well, that's another interesting thing that we've done. We have actually, our physical layout was conducive to this. We've constricted it to 1 entrance, and everyone that comes through is screened. If they don't know you or you're not an employee, they're going to ask you questions, where you've traveled to, any symptoms you're experiencing. And then, as Tim said, those thermometers that can be some distance from you, we're taking everyone's temperature coming in.
Who would come in if I'm assuming you can't have guests,
no visitors.
No, the visitors are shut down.
Who would be coming in that maybe somebody working there wouldn't recognize?
And they're not getting edible arrangement deliveries, right?
No.
We have about 1 minute until our break.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the short answer to that is we have a lot of visitors that come in. And then sometimes individuals who come in to perform repairs on various systems within the correctional facility.
That makes sense. And I remember, Tim, and we are coming up to the 7 o'clock, so if it gets short, that's just because of that. But just a couple of weeks ago, you had made that comment about people wanting to release the prisoners, and you made that comment like they have no place to go. So they just open the door, and then they're going to walk to where? where do you go? And then you end up on the street.
Which is part of the overall, the bail programs, when the bail hearings are done, with people getting released. That's what is your release plan? Where are you going to go? Mm-hmm. And what people should understand is that down to jail, Joe's numbers are incredibly low right now. We hear these myths of mass incarceration, they're packed to the gills. Absolutely not true. Joe's facility, I'll let him tell, but I think it's 1,240 is the capacity, and we're around 600 right now. Yeah. So people have the individual cells. They're very safe. They're very secure. They do a tremendous job down there. I can't say enough good things about the Sheriff's Department down there and all the men and women that work down there. They do a tremendous job. And people are safe down there as compared to being released and really being, for some of these men, being released, out of the fire, out of the frying pan into the fires.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we come back from our break, we're definitely going to get sort of down and dirty, I guess, with what's going on at the prisons and what's going on with you. I know we have a lot of programs that we want to talk about and a lot of great stuff coming from the District Attorney's Office and from the Sheriff's Department. So we're going to take this short break, and when we come back, we will have much more for you. We'll see you soon.
WATD-FM Marshfield, WMEX Quincy, WBMS Brockton, and translator W266DA Brockton. The South Shore's first choice for live team coverage of breaking news, emergency traffic, and severe weather. WATD. Streaming online at 959WATD.com and with your smart speaker just by saying play WATD.
AP News. I'm Jackie Quinn. The Associated Press has reviewed a recording in which Republican political operatives discuss recruiting pro-Trump doctors to go on TV to say it's okay to revive the U.S. economy without waiting for federal safety benchmarks. A progressive watchdog group provided the recording of that May 11th conference call with a senior staffer for the Trump re-election campaign. The president today refuted a study of veterans with COVID-19 who died or suffered ill effects from using the drug he's taking, hydroxychloroquine.
They were very old, almost dead. It was a Trump enemy statement.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin was grilled on Capitol Hill about many small businesses unable to get loans from the government's $2 trillion relief package. Ohio Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown accused the administration of reopening businesses too quickly without protecting frontline workers.
How many workers should give their lives to increase the GDP or the Dow Jones by 1,000 points?
Workers should give their lives to do that, Mr. Senator, and I think your characterization is unfair. We have provided enormous amounts of equipment.
Another protest planned at the Michigan Capitol to protest the state's stay-at-home orders. Barbers will be cutting people's hair to protest that their shops are closed. In addition to COVID-19, Michigan's been hit with flooding, forcing evacuations in the Midland area. In Missouri, a small plane made an emergency landing on a highway near Kansas City. Witness Dave Orrick spoke to KMBC TV.
Road blocked off, and then I looked up the street and saw the plane in the middle of the highway. And since then, it's grown into quite the spectacle. So looks like everyone's all right, so that's a good thing.
Stocks dropped today. The Dow down nearly 400 points. Canada and the U.S. agree to keep their borders closed another month because of the pandemic. This is AP News.
Good evening. Quite a dry stretch heading toward, and I expect right through the long Memorial Day weekend. Tonight will turn out chilly, fair, the breeze diminishing in the low 40s. Tomorrow, sunshine for the most part. Again, a cool breeze right along our coastal neighborhoods, not the penetrating ocean wind, and as you get inland of Route 3A, it'll reach into the mid-60s. Tomorrow night, clear, a low 40 to 45 in Boston. Thursday, a milder trend gets underway with high pressure shifting offshore. A good deal of strong May sunshine, the high 68. Friday will turn quite warm. Some sun, near 80 degrees, and then cooler with some cloudiness around going into the long weekend, though it looks like another real warm-up by the holiday. For WATD, I'm meteorologist Rob Gilman.
This is Mike McNamara. If you're looking for a financial advisor, start by asking him or her 3 questions. Number 1, are you a certified financial planner practitioner? Number 2, are you legally held to a fiduciary standard of care for your clients? And number 3, do you only give financial advice and not sell investment products? These are all simple yes-no questions. If he or she doesn't answer yes quickly and starts talking, that's a no, and it's time to move on to another advisor.
We now return to Talk Real Estate, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services on 95.9 WATD.
And we are back. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with Boston Connect Real Estate's broker team. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I'm here with my team members, Sharon McNamara, Mary Baker, and Dustin Hughes. And he is out of the
And there he is.
And there he is. Everyone was raising their hand.
And our team member, Dustin Hughes.
And our team member, Dustin Hughes, in his green room over there. If you want to listen to any of our past shows, you can go to talkrealestateroundtable.com. You can follow us on the podcast app or on iTunes, Spotify. You can go to Instagram. We're at Boston Connect Real Estate. And
You can find us anywhere.
Yeah, you can Google our names and you'll find us.
With these 2 people in the room, it's like it's so easy to like find us. It's so you don't have to worry about us going anywhere.
Yeah. So if you want to listen to any of our past shows, we had a really great show a couple weeks ago with Tim Cruz. We got a lot of great feedback on that. So we have him here again today. The Plymouth County District Attorney, and then we also have the High Sheriff of Plymouth County, Joe McDonald here.
She's never going to stop.
I'm never going to. I'm on the high right now because I'm going to go to prison.
So loud, you're like screaming. You're so excited.
I'm going to go to prison and I'm going to take a tour. It's so great.
I'm going to
Do you
prison.
understand the object is not to go to prison?
I know, but this is for educational purposes only. Okay.
Yeah. So we can fully understand what our guests are, what they're living every day. Can we also get into the courthouse?
When
it opens?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I actually did have a question about that. So I know we sort of talked about it last time I asked you this question, but now we have both of you guys here, so I wanted to sort of let our listeners know who are listening tonight. So, okay, the courthouses are closed. Clearly, the prison, people can still go to prison, but people are still committing crimes. What is now the process of you commit a crime, you get arrested, now what? Right. There's no.
Well, they're still arresting the people that need to be arrested because although we're in the middle of a pandemic, crime has not stopped. It's ongoing, especially certain kinds of crime, whether it be domestic violence is a continued issue. And if somebody's alleged to have violated the domestic violence law, they will be arrested as part of the mandatory arrest. A lot of the police departments, what we've seen, our arraignments have gone down county-wide because of the fact most of the police are not arresting them. But they're going to get summons returnables to show up in court at a different date. And usually the dates now are extended out until June or July.
Is this for like non-violent crimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's people are still getting arrested. Like in the urban section of our community, we continue, unfortunately, to make arrests with drug arrests, fentanyl arrests, gun arrests. Those individuals are going through the normal process. However, when they get arraigned, it usually is video or telephone. And so they get arraigned. And arraignment is your first time brought to court where you're notified of the charges against you. The plea of not guilty is entered automatically in your behalf. And at that time, somebody from my office, when the assistant DAs, will make an argument if necessary for a DA. In other words, an amount of money that has to be put up to make sure that person is going to show up. And also to make sure that person may be a risk to the community. And so you look at the totality of the circumstances, we make our bail review, that person will have a defense attorney, that person will argue on behalf of the defendant, and then the judge will make the determination as to whether there's going to be bail, whether there's not going to be bail, whether there's going to be an amount of bail, whether there's going to be GPS. And if they are held on an amount of bail that they cannot make, for whatever the reason may be, they will then be held down if they're men, they'll be held down to Plymouth County House Correction in the dependency of that case. And eventually, as we see our numbers go down, I anticipate that we're going to continue to see that happen. Police are trying to do the right thing and not making a lot of arrests that they don't have to. And when they do have non-violent offenses, to give tickets for one vehicle infraction or things like that, but they're still doing the job and doing what they can because, we still continue to live in a world where people are trying to take advantage of the COVID-19. So not only do we have to make sure that people are safe from the disease, we have to make sure that people are safe from the people who will use it as an advantage to either try to get out of jail or try to get your money or your information, whatever it may be.
It's a shame that people have to take advantage of people during these times, but you see it happening over and over. And, you know, we talked last time about some of the scams that are going on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I know I did see, I think on the news, I mean, there was that terrible murder that happened, you know, with that doctor. I don't even understand why he was, in Dover, why he was actually still a doctor after he did that, you know, a fraud to Medicare or whatever it was. But, you know, one of the things I saw was that they can do, like, if the judge is now doing things like through like Zoom and through Zoom. Right. And I thought it was interesting. Wouldn't that be easier for everybody just to continue to do that? Like you have to travel, you have to get them secured in a van to get them to these different locations, to these different courthouses, get them in there. To me, that's just like a Sunday drive. Like keep them in the cell and bring in a screen.
You're a very sharp lady, Sharon, I have to say. And that is an argument that countless individuals in the criminal justice system have made. The courts have wanted us to do that. The DAs are amenable to that. Certainly, it saves us huge amounts of traveling and security. What has been the pushback traditionally, though, has been the defense bar. And they want to have the time with their clients in court, face-to-face. So we continue, for the most part, to drive. I can't tell you how many miles, but it's got to be millions of miles a year that we do, because we go to all the courts in the Commonwealth. It's not unusual. But I think we're seeing now that maybe one part of the silver lining perhaps is that we understand, and now we see that doing things by video conference is not the end of the world. It is and can be very effective.
So maybe this is going to be one of those things where it's a new norm, right? I mean, how do you feel about it?
I absolutely agree for the arraignments, for a lot of pre-trial motions and things that go on. However, for trials themselves, we're going to, grand jury proceedings or regular jury proceedings, we're going to have people have the right via our Constitution, the U.S., our Declaration of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, to confront the people against them. And we also have open courtrooms. And what I would be concerned about if we were trying cases and jurors were zooming in, is that all of a sudden, how do I know people aren't listening at their kitchen table? How do I know for grand jury purposes things are secret? So virtual trials, I'm 100% against. However, in order to minimize the transportation and minimize the security, I agree with the sheriff that, we should be doing more of that. And he's right. We have lots of the individuals want their clients to be brought from the jail to Brockton. That's usually with the bail reviews are usually done in Brockton Superior Court. Not, you would think we do most of them from the Plymouth County Jail to the Plymouth Superior Court. It's about a quarter of a mile. But instead, we're doing a lot of the traveling to Brockton Superior Court, and the jail. I mean, the building itself is about 125 years old, and the jails are very inadequate for a lot of the things that go on in the system.
And how many people does it take to transport what is that process? I mean, do you have to have two people, like one driving a van and one ready to?
Well, we do. We have two corrections officers who are also deputy sheriffs, which means they're trained as corrections officers, but they're also trained as police. They have been to police academies as well.
Okay.
So there's two of those per van, and the vans can accommodate probably up to 6 or 8 people comfortably. So they can transport large numbers, but where it gets really difficult is a lot of these individuals, they may have a case, as Tim says, in Brockton, but then they've got a case, somewhere out in Worcester County or somewhere out in Middlesex County or Essex County. So that can get really challenging. And the nice thing that our guys are able to do, and not just us in Plymouth, but all the sheriffs, we work together on this. So sometimes we end up getting that individual to a court in Central Mass, and then the Central Mass guys will take him all the way to Western Mass if need be. So it's a dynamic system. That's the difference a lot of times between the Department of Corrections and us. We're a dynamic population. They're a static population.
Yeah, it gets very congested too. When you talk about the volume of people bringing inmates or people who are being held through a court system. So if you're talking Middlesex is bringing somebody to Brockton, Plymouth is bringing somebody to Brockton, Norfolk's bringing somebody to Brockton, somebody's coming from Hugh Junction. A female may be in custody, and the females are held at Framingham or South Bay. So they're coming in separate times, and you're always seeing different dichotomies of people coming. You're always seeing deputy sheriffs wandering from getting people off. They'll be there. They'll be inside the jail cells. They'll be waiting for the attorney for that person to get rotated to get their case call and put them back where they belong.
Which only proves that that's not opening anytime soon. Look at all the transferring you're doing. So you're right now, I would say, like, you're running a clean place, right? You have a clean cells. You want to keep it that way. So if you're going to be transferring people that are coming from other places that maybe have it, now you're potentially contaminating, your guys. How am I doing to my specialists up there, to the deputy chief, the chief, acting chief, and Board of Health, right? That makes sense, right? You don't want to be, cross-contaminated.
Yeah. No, you always want to limit travel whenever you're talking about an infectious disease. And that's why many countries, of course, immediately, controlled borders and everything else. Obviously, once you're within a certain country, that's more difficult to do. But the more you move populations, any population, it doesn't matter why the population is isolated. But when you take an isolated population, whether it's a nursing home or incarceration or any other reason why a population might be isolated, when you move those individuals around, every point of contact is another point of contamination.
And we have a couple questions, actually. So Melissa actually has a couple people calling in or texting us from Facebook.
So a couple questions for you guys. So I noticed that there was something on here about Brockton, and Mary likes to listen to crime podcasts. I like to read a lot about crime. So I read an article the other day, I think it was in the Enterprise, about how crime has increased, especially in Brockton. So somebody is asking, with not being able to come in close contact with a lot of people, are there still raids or warrants, sweeps going on still, not just in Brockton, but really all over Plymouth County, or is those sort of
it is not
back, or
it's not unusual. Without giving away too much, every year at certain times of the year, we will do all different law enforcement agencies, whether they be the sheriffs, the deputy sheriff, would make sure the state police and all the local police also that are also working usually in the urban community of Brockton. And they will go out and make arrests in massive individuals who have committed crimes on prior dates. And during the course of this sweep, they will be picked up. And generally speaking, lots of times it's drugs and guns and trafficking in certain drugs that are out there. And the sweeps have been there. They've been incredibly effective. Quite honestly, we used to do it right before the Brockton Fair every year. And like I always say, these guys must not read the Enterprise. We do it every year for the Brockton Fair. And what you've seen as a result of that, the numbers go down. Because the individuals who would go there and create havoc, individuals who would go there and maybe give you a hard time or try to do some crime around the vicinity, they're not there because they're off the streets. So we continue to do that, and we'll continue to do that because I find that to be effective in order to try and keep them on their toes and also let them know that law enforcement's out there and that we can get guns and drugs off the street. And when you look at our numbers in the city, in our only city here in the county, the Brockton numbers are down overall for the last couple of years, including our homicides and our shootings. And we know that because of the fact that we've got in Greenwich, we have Shot Squad, which is a machine that triangulates where the shots come from. We know exactly where the shots are coming from, when they're coming from, and they automatically notify the police department so that we have an idea and we can quantify the number of shots that are out there. We can also go to the scene that maybe they normally wouldn't go to because they didn't know. They'll pick up shell casings, and that's when you talk about BCI, you talk about a lot of the other groups. We want to find out the shell casings. We want to know where the guns come from because we're watching guns. The shells are the same in Brockton. Are they the same in Dorchester and Boston? There is a connection from Boston down to our urban community. So we're trying to tie guns up, and the amount of information you can extrapolate from those things is incredible.
And they're doing a lot of like plaster Paris footprints. How's that? That's what you learned. You learned in school. Plaster Paris footprints. I had to do it in a shoebox.
That and tire impressions. You know, you get the tread of a tire.
So Mary gets to work with Josh, and then I get to work with the district attorney's office, and you get to work in the sheriff's department.
Excellent.
So, we just quit real estate. That's it, folks. Bye. That's all we got. So do we have another question from somebody?
Yeah, we have a question. So somebody's asking about have you guys seen an increase in domestic violence calls or, having to go out because everybody's home and, everybody's frustrated, not being able to leave their house and not being able to work.
Yeah, I think that, you have the insecurities of the world that are going on right now, whether they be getting food or sick, job insecurity right now. I think that can only, plus with the isolation, it's created issues, and it certainly has kept domestic violence cases up, and they have not gone down anymore. And that is also in conjunction, and maybe unfortunately, maybe hand-to-hand with child abuse. We don't anticipate those cases going down, notwithstanding the fact that, we've seen our calls go down from the mandated reporters because of the situation where we're at. So domestic violence, and I will say to anybody that may be watching this show or listening to this show, please, if you are in a dire emergency situation, first and foremost, call 911. Second of all, there's hope out there, there's help out there. There are groups out there to help women and their children to escape individuals who may be violent to them. Please reach out. And if you need help to get information, PlymouthDA.com has all the numbers that you need. I know the Sheriff's Department also has all the numbers that anybody needs in order to get the help that they can and get removed from a dangerous situation. The last thing we want to see is a situation like happened over in Dover, or what happened in Wareham a month or so ago. You constantly will see these situations. And lots of times
Weymouth, they had one in Weymouth yesterday, the day before.
Someone got killed, or was it?
Yeah, son killed the father in Weymouth. Domestic.
Everybody is. So one of the other things too, on that same note, I think, and again, I just want to give kudos to your assistants. I don't know exactly what their positions are, and I forget who belongs to who, but they collaborated so well together, and they were so patient because we've had actually a crazy week ourselves, and they were just really, really great. And I believe it was yours, Joe, that Karen. Yeah, I think it was. She called me like Friday night on her way home, so
Karen's
great.
amazing. She's amazing.
They are wonderful, wonderful. So it's really important that you guys have those people. But I know one thing that she told me was the safety assurance program that you have in the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, I'm glad she told you to mention it. Yeah.
So we watched the video today on how that all works and everything. And I'll let you explain it. But I was curious. It did say that program checks on the elderly or those who are living alone. Could it be something that's also utilized, like if I was a woman and was afraid of maybe domestic abuse or something, that I could be added to that list if I wanted to? Or is it just for elderly?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's for anybody that wants to. I mean, I tell people, I think the elderly are the ones who we most often think of when you think of a program like that.
Yeah.
And, it used to be called Are You Okay? And that was a copyrighted thing. And the equipment's been upgraded, and it's a different vendor now that has that. So we're not able to use that. So it's now known as safety assurance, but it's the same program. And what it allows people to do is it's an automated thing at first. We have a communication center down at the sheriff's office as well. And there are automated phone calls that people choose a time. I thought when I first came in, maybe I'd have a call to Tim at 4 a.m. But you choose your own time, and what it'll do is basically, if you're all right, just press a button on the phone.
1.
If you need assistance, you can press another button.
3.
Or very good. Yeah, you've called in.
Watched.
So
next one's 5.
but I think the big concern for us can oftentimes be if there's no response. And then, a lot of people are like, well, I don't want you to call 911. And so that's not how it works. What ends up happening is you've already given us instructions. If you don't answer the phone or you request assistance, someone live, one of the communications officers will call you and ask you, okay, what's the situation? What do you need? And the response will be commensurate with what your needs are. If for some reason we can't get anybody, we don't, call NORAD and send everyone. We don't do that. What we'll do is, most times people will say, well, my nephew lives across the street, and call him and he'll come over and see. And thankfully, most of the time when people don't answer, it just means that they went on vacation and forgot to tell us, or they had an early golf game, or they've gone fishing. But in certain situations, they have had, we've had saves where people have been in need and not able to answer the phone, and we're very glad that they've availed themselves. Service is totally free. All they need to do is call our office or go on our website, and they can get information to sign up for that. So that's a great program. Any age. Some people, you may not need it for a long period of time. Maybe you need it while you're convalescing from a surgery or something like that. Or
Well, I think right now it's such a great time to know about that. And I think that Karen was great to, tell me about it, because if you are having symptoms of COVID and you are alone and there isn't anybody checking in on you, at least you have that security of knowing, hey, I do need some help.
Right.
One of my questions about it was, can it be on your cell phone or does it have to be on a landline? I don't even know if you know the answer to that.
I think, well, traditionally it's been on a landline, but I think a lot of people now are doing away with landlines and having only cell phones. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to imagine that you could do it on a cell phone as well. We have another program that the Code Red, which, allows us to broadcast messages to different areas. Mm-hmm. And we're finding that as a lot of people were giving up those landlines, they couldn't receive those calls. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes they'll have an area code which doesn't geographically match where they are.
Yeah.
So if there's road closures in Pembroke, you don't care what's happening in Mattapoisett, right? So we need to know, you can let us know, and hopefully, I'm positive there's a workaround for that.
And who is making these calls? Are there the officers in the station, or could they be volunteers? Like who's making these calls that are on the list?
Well, the initial call is done by machine. It's computerized, but we have communications. We have a communications center down there that does dispatching for us, but also mutual aid for fire when there's big incidents that are taking place. They do a lot of stuff down there. So there's communications officers who would physically go in there and make those follow-ups on the calls that require that type of thing. So it's a person you talk to.
Yeah. So if you press three?
One. Well, if you press one, you're okay. And three,
you need to
speak to somebody.
Yeah.
And
so if you press 3, you're connected with a live person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that historically, Tim and I do these presentations, we do these senior luncheons. And a lot of times the seniors, I don't want to bother anybody. I really don't need that. So what I say to those folks is this: look, don't do it for you.
Do it for me.
Because you don't need it, but do it for your children or your grandchildren who are worried.
Yeah.
This is, in one fell swoop, you can tell them, don't worry about this. And a lot of people are like, I'm not doing it for me, I'll do it for them. So it's a great idea, whether you're a senior or anybody, or as you correctly point out, I think somebody in a tenuous domestic situation could definitely use that as well.
Well, if somebody's home, and especially if they're home now, and I'm going to be honest, because I don't know how to be anything else, and I just sort of say it, and I wonder when WATD is going to kick me off the air, but but you know what, if you're home and you're in the domestic situation, you basically know when that person's going to be jacked, right? So maybe you say, okay, I want my phone call to be at 7:00 at night. You know what I mean? Or can you do it that late? I'm sure. Yeah.
It's normally an early type of thing, but that's something that if we can't do, we should probably look at.
Yeah. So then I would know, especially if it was on my cell phone and I was in that situation, I think it would give me the opportunity to just not let the jack know, where I'm not fully saying the name, and just press the button, So, but one of the other things, and we're always about giving value here. Again, you're listening to Talk Real Estate, has nothing to do with real estate. We're all on this COVID thing and how it's impacting all different departments and everything. And one thing I love is sometimes somebody will say something and it prompts me to something else. But what you said, Joe, too, was about the phone numbers. And I remember talking to Ken when we were, do you remember, Ken, when we were over on Cruz Street with the 911 situation? If we press, because our phones are through the internet. So the phones, like if we pushed 911, it wasn't going to go anywhere. So we had to go in, I didn't realize that. So we had to go in the back end of all of our phones and we had to change everything. And that was one of the very first things I did when we purchased this building. So people know that if you do internet phones, you can now have it so it locates where your property is. Are you seeing any situations like with people not having the landlines, and what happens when they push 911 from a cell phone? Is that going to the state police?
Cell phones used to go to the state police. I think some still do, but some go over to Duxbury. And some may actually go to the sheriff's department. I'm not 100% sure where they all go, but it's not a direct line to the town that you're looking for because it has to ping off cell towers. So if you're in Pembroke and you use your cell phone to call 911 to get us or the police, it's not going to us or the police. It's going to go somewhere first and reroute to us.
But we'll eventually get you.
It will. It will eventually. That's why in any cell phone, you should have probably the emergency numbers to the town that you live in So you can just hit that number and it'll go directly to them.
Okay, perfect. Were there any other questions on Facebook?
Yeah, but we do have a couple minutes till we do our 7:30 break. But and you sort of touched upon it a little bit with people coming in and out of the prisons, and I think there might be something on here as well from you. But somebody is asking, you know, are people from the outside being able to come in for self-help meetings such as NA and AA? You know, with that, like I know that in some prisons, you know, you can have those types of meetings and sort of do like self-helps like that. Are they just being run by people who are in the prison, or can somebody sort of do that from the outside?
Under normal circumstances, we have a tremendous number of volunteers that come in to do those types of things. We've, since this whole situation began, we stopped that completely, all the volunteers, for everybody's safety. The short answer to that is those things are still possible and programming is still going on because we have had our program staff. But what we've done is we've cut it back. So let's say, you know, all four of us were program staff people like reentry or whatever we're doing, because people are still getting released as well. You know, you may come in for 2 days and then you'll come in for the next 2 days and then you skip a day and then Tim is in and then I'm in and then, so that's what we've been doing. We've been rotating so that people are able to, you know, to keep up with that stuff. But yeah, the short answer is programming is still ongoing and still, you know, our program staff, I got to give them a lot of credit. They are very, very dedicated. One thing that doesn't get mentioned, Tim touched upon it. You know, you hear a lot about prison overcrowding. Don't believe it. Our populations have been decreasing, I think probably since I became sheriff, and it's generally been a good thing. It's due to a lot, and this isn't just in Plymouth County. This is system wide. So you've seen a lot of times. I think what's responsible for this, I'm hoping that, you know, our rehabilitative programming is doing good, but also a lot of the specialty courts. You've got the drug courts, the veterans courts, and when this whole thing began, and they started the hue and cry to release everybody, we should release all of the low-level nonviolent offenders. And I said, great, but we've already done that. Because those people don't come to jail anymore. You know, it's one of those things. So we're still continuing those things. People are still getting released. And that's something that our people put a tremendous amount of effort in, because if someone presents and they've got all issues and there'll be drug issues, alcohol issues, domestic violence, we need to have a great plan in place for when they get out. Otherwise, they're just going to come right back to us. So we're looking for where they're going to live, because sometimes, and a lot of times, they can't go back to their families. Who's going to be their doctor when they're out there? You know, we've got to get them involved in that. Any programming that they're going to be, are there halfway houses, beds available, things like that. So a lot of work goes into that, and that's ongoing.
There are these groups like the people to believe that the jails are so crowded and that we're dealing with mass incarceration here, and people are being held on marijuana charges, which isn't even a crime anymore in the Commonwealth, and nothing can be farther from the truth. Massachusetts is 50 out of 50 of the states for incarceration purposes. We're not down south, where there very well may be some significant issues going on down there, overcrowding and things like that. We're 50 out of 50. You have sheriff's departments like Joe's and others across the Commonwealth who have great programming. I agree. I think it's a totality of the circumstances. But make no mistake about it. There are people in our community, there are people in our society who have to be off the streets. They have to be. And these groups that are out there that are promoting de-incarceration, the alleged progressive groups or whatever you want to call them, they don't have their facts right. They're pushing out facts that are not correct. And if we did what they wanted and released murderers and rapists and child molesters and armed career criminals and fentanyl traffickers and people who carry guns and hurt people and break into homes,
because Steve is shaking over it.
We would be a lot less safe. And that's part of my job and part of the sheriff's job, to make sure that we do our best to make sure we keep everybody safe.
And then I want to stay on this topic, so we're just going to skip through that one. Okay, so that next break, because I can do that, right?
You can do whatever you want, Sharon. That's the name of the game.
All right. Because one of the things that I had read or I had seen on TV is that 1,000 prisoners have, or inmates, I don't know, what do we call them? Prisoners, inmates? What's the politically correct thing?
Well, you know, it depends on what their status is. If they're with us, they're inmates. If they're serving sentences, if they haven't been convicted yet, they're pretrial detainees.
Okay.
So I can just call them prisoners.
You can just say, yeah, right, exactly. Prisoners.
Yeah. Or prisoners, yeah. So I had read or heard that there was 1,000 inmates or whatever that were released. And one of the things that sort of surprised me was the judge. It was a judge that was being interviewed. Mm-hmm. And she said, but overall, only 16 of them have reoffended. And I'm thinking in my head, well, only 16? Because I don't care if it was only one, if you did it to me or one of my loved ones. You know what I mean? So I just found it just very sort of, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Where did they say that these inmates were?
They were in Massachusetts.
Oh.
Yeah. They were the sheriffs were wanting to track this data, and I think it would be worthwhile, but it's very difficult to track because once they're gone, we don't necessarily know what's happening. And a lot of them are reoffending. We've also got many of them that are going out because we're not releasing them appropriately, with aftercare or anything. A lot of them are going out and they're homeless. They're going out and overdosing on drugs. My colleague out in Hampshire County, he received a phone call from Connecticut, and because an inmate who had overdosed and died used that correctional facility as his last known address.
Oh.
So, but, make no mistake, you may have heard, Tim and I had talked about this. There was a gentleman who stole a car in Plimpton and led the police on a high-speed chase and eventually drove that into the harbor in Plymouth and then came out and started fighting with the police officers down there. He had been released as one of the COVID releases as well.
That day?
Well, no, it had actually been some period of, weeks beforehand. But I'm going to look at my phone here because the sheriffs were circulating. There was a sheriff out in California, Fresno. I think.
Right.
Yeah, and the headline was priceless.
On the money. Yeah, it just goes to show you that this. We look at all of our cases, all the new cases coming in, all the potential individuals who may have some significant health issues, and therefore maybe they are being held on a nonviolent offense. Maybe they just don't show up in court, which is another whole issue. People need to understand when somebody doesn't show up in court, it sets all sorts of problems going on with the smoothness of the court system. We're dealing with victims, and unfortunately, we're dealing with groups who continue to treat defendants or prisoners or inmates or pretrial detainees. They treat them as the victims, and the victims become invisible.
If I was in there, I wouldn't want to come out. I'd feel safer there.
I found the Fresno County Sheriff. Fresno County Sheriff Mims says she is not enforcing stay-at-home orders, too busy trying to rearrest freed criminals.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I sent out, the sheriffs had circulated that, and my response to that was, a shorter, perhaps more concise headline could read, "I told you so."
Yeah. I made a mistake.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take a genius to realize that, this could be a problem. So when you see those signs, free them all. The good news is, we got sued, the DAs got sued, we all ended up in front of the Supreme Judicial Court, and they issued an order, which is, no, we're not going to free everybody because of, the sky is falling. We're going to do this in a reasoned, contemplative manner. And, defense counsel can file a motion. The DA's office can oppose that motion, and a judge is going to make a decision. And I was personally very comfortable in knowing that Tim and his staff were going to be there to fight for the ones that, really shouldn't be released.
This is the rules. Like you committed a crime, you're in prison, and we're taking care of you, and we're responsible for you. So I don't understand to free them all. But one thing I wanted to say, sorry, and I'm going to let you talk in a sec. For all our WATD listeners, if you have any questions as well, please call the studio. Ben is there, so you can ask questions. 781-837-4900, 781-837-4900. Again, you're listening to Talk Real Estate, nothing about real estate, except for the housing over at the Plymouth County Jail, right? But we have Sheriff Joe McDonald with us tonight, and we also have the District Attorney Tim Cruz with us. Just a very, very interesting conversation because I'm having a hard time wrapping my hands around anybody having the time to stand out in front of a jail to say free them all. I just don't get it. I can't.
Yeah, and they're reasonably intelligent people, the ones that I've spoken to. And I think it's easy to make those types of assertions. Tim correctly points out that many of those folks are going back. They're not going back to the neighborhoods that these people are coming from, the activists. And I think I'd like to get them to think about that. Say, look, these people are going back to neighborhoods where there are other law-abiding people who are going to be terrorized by these folks. You're not.
Yeah.
I just wish the activists would think things through before they do things. They a lot of times are, I think it's called the Massachusetts Bail Project. And sometimes, they do a good thing and they post somebody's bail. But I can't tell you how often I hear from the guys in our booking department, the inmates, hey, you're out. Someone posted you. Well, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, that's what I would be like. I'd be like,
so somebody, they raised this money and they thought they did a favor for this guy and now he's got nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. So it's, just think about these things.
Yeah. Well, I had a question about releasing. So these inmates have been released, but if it's not because of overcrowding, why are they being released? Is it because of the pandemic or what?
The Supreme Judicial Court made a determination when everybody gets sued, and the ACLU, Community Public Counsel Service, MACTA, which is the Mass Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Prison Legal Rights Groups, wanted everybody released. They all had different little versions of it, but they all basically wanted to de-incarcerate everyone and get them out. So we had a hearing. We opposed that. All the sheriffs opposed it. 7 of the DAs, elected DAs opposed it. And eventually they came up with a determination, that we're going to have individualized hearings. That's what we do every day anyways. We have bail hearings. That's what we do. You can't say if you are 50 plus and you're charged with quote unquote a nonviolent offense, we're going to release you. And like the sheriff said, first and foremost, in Massachusetts, you have to earn your way into jail. Yeah. People are not being put in there for their first time, their second time, their third time. And when you are dealing with individuals who really, they've already shown that they're not going to comply with the law. And they're not going to also comply with their ability to show up in court. They just don't look at somebody's record and people say, oh, you shouldn't look at the history. Well, that is the best prognosticator of what they're going to do in the future. If somebody hasn't shown up 20 times, we'll make that pitch to the judge and say, listen, this guy's not going to show up next time. We're going to spend money and bring cops here, bring the victims here, inconvenience them, and then we're going to have to go out and get these individuals back. We're going to have to send the sheriff's team out, the violent fugitive apprehension team. And crazy and terrible things happen when that happens. And, police officers, correction officers, they can get hurt, they've been shot at, they've been killed. And, at the end of the day, we want to keep everybody safe. And the best way to do that is for people to understand that there are some individuals, and just really 300 or so from Plymouth County down to jail. Think of that. We're 515,000 people in Plymouth County. And we have 300 or so, more or less, because Joe also has federal inmates down there, that maintain that 600 people. A handful of people are being held down there. And I think that just goes to show you what a great job that's been going on here in the Commonwealth. And a lot of the groups that want them out, the sheriff said, not only do they not know where they're going to go, they don't really care. And I think it's really a lack of knowledge in a lot of these groups. They think that they're doing the right thing, and they haven't, quite honestly, in the real world. And the real world is out there, and it's a dangerous place. And you need to have people like the sheriff. We need to have people like our police chiefs. We need to have people there that are willing to stand there and say, we have a job to do. We have rights that are out there that we make sure they're taken care of. And we're going to do our job to keep people safe.
And look how hard you had to work to get them there in the first place. So if you're saying they're not going there for the first time, the second time, the third time, so now here we are, the fourth time around that they're having whatever they're doing. I don't even know whatever their crime is. So think about the police that are involved in that, and then to you, and then to the judges, and then to you. You know what I mean? There's so many people involved, and then people are just like, oh, okay, now we're going to take federal money, I would guess, and state money to now sue the people who are working hard to get the criminals behind bars. I don't get it.
And at the sheriff also, we have so many specialty courts now for people with, let's face it, a lot of people. I want to make sure the people who are trafficking in fentanyl, carfentanil, heroin, and opiates, the people who are making money in the backs of the people, our loved ones who are dying in our community, I want to make sure that they're helped, not the users. We have drug courts to help people, users. Users will use drugs in order to help their they'll have five hits and they'll move things along. We're not throwing people in jail for the heck of it. It's too serious a situation because most of the people, something like 98 or 99% of the people that are with the sheriff down there are going to be released at some point. That's why the programs that he has, the anger management issues, education issues, the drug issues, all those programs are helping these men come back into the real world and say, you know what? those days are behind me, and they don't want to recidivate and come back, and we don't want them to.
Yeah, and maybe they do just need that second chance, and I think that they have a better chance of learning that when they're with you than they're going to if they get freed. So, and I'm suddenly nervous because you guys get to walk around with guns when you leave here, so now I have all these like people who are probably like, let's go find where she is. So if you wouldn't mind having a detail out here for the next couple of weeks, that would be great.
Yeah, we have enough local police that keep an eye on us.
Yes, we do. We actually do. So do you guys have any questions for our guests up there? I know time is flying here too, and I want to give Ken and Lisa an opportunity to give us a little update as well. Anybody? Nope.
So I was just thinking, and I don't know if you're ready to move on to, because we have about 17 minutes left, from a more local perspective, what we can envision for the future, at least what Ken, Lisa, Tim, and Joe, just Joe.
Just Joe.
Just Joe. I was going to say just John. It got stuck in my head. I don't know why. Just Joe, how you guys are feeling. Like, what does the future look like in the sense of reopening, people abiding by the rules, people getting fined for not abiding by the rules? Like, how do we feel like this is going to go? I'm just curious. What things have been put into place in case?
Look at Ken. I think that Ken is telling it all.
Still wait and see. Yeah, don't screw it up. We got to wait and see. Everybody's done a great job so far to get to where we are. Mm-hmm. We just got to see it all the way through the home stretch, and I'm not sure that some people can do that, to be quite honest with you.
How have the calls been for the department for Pembroke? I mean, have your calls been up this week, down this week? What's been going on there?
So the last week and a half, it's been up. We're taking more people to the hospital because they're not afraid to go now. Mm-hmm. For some unforsaken reason. They were 3 weeks ago. Now they're not. Mm-hmm.
They realize the virus hasn't gone anywhere, right?
Yeah, I don't know what it is because the virus is still there. Lisa will tell you it's there and hasn't
it's
really
still there
gone anywhere. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the reason is. People are maybe comfortable with it. People are getting comfortable with it as we do as a society.
Yeah.
I think for the most part we'll be okay. We're just going to have those selected few.
So, Ken, one of the other things too, so Joe and Tim were just talking about, the drugs and things like that. Have you seen any increase in the calls for, like overdoses and things where the fire department is called out? Or have you seen some of that decrease maybe?
In the beginning, it was decreased. We haven't seen a lot of overdose calls as of late. I think that has a lot to do with a bunch of other things, Narcan being more readily available. So they're not telling us, they're not calling us like they used to, which is an issue in itself. I mean, I'm happy that they can take care of those issues on their own with that, but it doesn't give you a true account of the number of overdoses that are actually out there now because Narcan is so prevalent in society.
Yeah.
But we have seen an increase in other calls, a few domestics, which we knew was going to flare up and show its ugly head eventually, with just people being isolated. Like I said, more people want to go to the hospital now because they either feel comfortable or, they're sick because they stayed so long. So our calls have definitely been up.
One of the things too, and I don't know if you're seeing any of this, or maybe you can give some insight into our town, and I know that you're in contact with other local towns as well, so this isn't just about Pembroke, it's all of Plymouth County that we're talking about, and Norfolk and Suffolk and everywhere around. Tim, one of the items that I never even thought about it, and Melissa and I were going through the list was, with the teachers, and you have students who, are in school and maybe the teacher notices a bruise or some type of violence going on in the home. Well, the teachers, what are they called again? The mandated reporters. The mandated reporters. So we don't have that. We don't have the daycares. And what's going on with the children? I mean, how do they don't know how to call and be put on a phone, list to make sure they're okay.
The unfortunately it's still there. We have, I think I talked last night, the Plymouth County CAC, the Child Advocacy Center, where we have every year in Plymouth County approximately 1,200 kids who go through that center because they've been victims of neglect or abuse. And what we've seen, unfortunately, is that because of the fact that there are no schools right now, other than online, because of the fact that most people aren't going to churches. They weren't because of also the COVID-19, and routine doctor's visits weren't happening either. All those individuals would be a version of a mandated reporter, somebody who saw something, who would say something. So you look at the numbers that we're dealing with child abuse right now. Between March 16th and May 1 of 2019, we had approximately 161 reports of 51As, which are reports of abuse and neglect. During that same time period here in 2020, we've had 60. So do I think that we've gone down by 2/3? No, I don't. I think that what we have here is a result of the fact that the mandated reporters aren't there to do that reporting, that a lot of terrible things could be happening. So anybody that's out there that may be in a position to see a child, hear from a child, or whatever it may be, please don't hesitate to reach out, because you may be their last hope.
I'm very upset about this right now, because I just never even thought about it until I read this. And you guys are dealing with such real things, you know what I mean?
It's a heavy topic.
With children who have nobody. And I think it's funny to put the title of a mandated reporter on someone who's just a teacher. I would say, as an adult, I would be that person too. So if I was walking, down an aisle in Stop and Shop and I saw something, I think that my response would be, hey, I have to call. Well, I think a lot of people don't want to get involved, but maybe is that the message? Get involved, but don't touch, just call.
But you can be anonymous. B, you can also be in a position where if you see something that you should understand, it doesn't mean that DCF, the Department of Children and Families, is going to come and take that child away from their parents immediately. Most times they would come and offer services. If they're not somebody that they know who they are, unless they have a history. That's the other thing. That could be, if somebody is going to be yanking their kid by the arm with Shaw's or stopping shot, what are they doing at home? And if you see a poor kid, really, it's because what I would like to see happen at some point is we deal with people right now, the cycles of domestic violence, the cycles of child abuse. A lot of the kids who are hurt as children become perpetrators later on because they don't get the help. And lots of the kids that we deal with at our CAC, we're making sure that they get the help that they need so they can be better themselves. Make sure that they get taken away from the people who are hurting them, because most people, unfortunately, these kids aren't being hurt by strangers. They're being hurt by people that they know, or that their parents may know, and for whatever reason, they're in that situation. How do you remove that child from that dangerous situation, get them the services that they need, and make sure that maybe, just maybe, you stop these cycles?
That's what I was just going to say. It's all about the cycles. And, I talk about, I grew up in Dorchester, and, I didn't really feel it there when my parents owned the convenience store. It was very much about CYO, and I always say social media started on the doorstep there. But when my parents owned a store in Brockton, I saw some terrible, terrible things that actually just literally broke my heart. And, kids with no shoes on and, stealing. I remember stealing milk in Suzy Q's. And it was this young girl. She was maybe 8 years old. And I'm sort of going back a little bit. And she had her little brothers and sisters with her. There was 4 of them total. And I said to I let them steal it. And I know I could have taught them a lesson, but I also said, children don't steal milk and Suzy Q's, big, thick Suzy Q's to fill your belly. They would steal gum and candy. So I let them take it. And those things are still happening right now. And I just do think as adults, we owe that to our younger generation. If we do see something, I didn't think of it until I saw that. They're not in school right now, so there isn't anyone to really watch over them. So have you, Lisa and Ken, have you seen anything that have you getting calls that, maybe situations, or, Lisa, you're Board of Health, so you're seeing all kinds of things. You're being called into houses that sometimes have to be condemned and things like that. So situations like that where you have to sort of step in?
Yeah, frequently. It goes hand in hand when you go into that kind of scenario, but just to touch on the kids at home, I have to give a lot of kudos to the school department. They've done an awesome job still having pickup lunches and things like that. And unfortunately, there is often a parallel between people and families that require additional services, having other abuse and management issues. Unfortunately and unfairly, those two things seem to fall hand in hand. So I know that, yes, these kids are at home, but they're not without contact outside their home. that the school department is maintaining contact as much as they can with as many families as they can. Certainly nothing like being at school, but the isolation isn't as total as we might imagine it is. But yes, when you're drawn into a situation, whether it's a medical or unfortunately a legal police interaction, there is that aspect that comes out. But the good thing about that is that it does come out. And there's a running joke or an old adage, if you would, that you can't fix anything that no one knows is broken. You can't fix the things that no one knows there's a problem. So it's better that it's out there, and for all the frustrations or whatever a family might feel, it's having that stuff exposed that allows it to be, repaired or aided, depending on what the situation is.
And that's, I think, one of the things is finances. You tend to see, like, we're going to see more divorces and things like that. And finances, the struggle is real. And for people who are already sort of struggling, I think that it's going to be a little more real for them. So
yeah,
I
agree.
Really, really unfortunate situations. But hopefully, we try to keep everything positive too, that they can get some help. So unfortunately, I don't think little kids right now are listening to WATD, but I just think the messages to the adults, if we do see something. We only have 5 minutes left. I can't believe it. Yeah. Lisa, I just have a question. So when all of this is over, I'm planning on having a pool party at my house, okay? And I'm inviting all of our guests. But tonight, for some reason, I'm just really emotional about the guests that we have and you guys being here. And every week it gets more and more emotional for me. When am I allowed to hug these guys and you? When does that happen?
Well, we don't know. And I think that's the hardest part about all of this. If we could have said at the outset, we need everyone to be apart for X number of days, and when X number of days is over, it's over. And the problem with this, what makes it so hard, what makes it so stressful, and I've said this to a lot of people this week, and I'm going to say it to you. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel like it isn't fair. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be all of these things. And it would be so much easier if we could just say, on this date, it's going to be okay. And the reality is I can't say that to you. I can't say that to you as a health professional. I can't say that to you as a scientist, because we're still learning what this virus does, what it's capable of. We have no idea of its longevity, its ability to bounce back or mutate or adapt. There's just too many unknowns. And so what I do try to remind people is, that we as a species have a pretty good track record of surviving these things. We have to look ahead. We have to be optimistic, and know that it will come to an end. So, Sharon, I don't know is the short answer. I don't know when we're going to all be able to hang out together and hug and have some of those more normal interactions.
We will be able to do that again, right?
But I'm Italian.
I like to hug and meet people.
Yeah, it will happen.
But one of the things that you were saying too is, and I do feel like this is one of those, when we're talking about like the AA meetings and stuff. And one of the things I did want to point out is I'm probably assuming you can do that virtually too with the AA meetings and stuff in the prisons.
Yes.
But like those cycles that you go through, when it's with anything like a loss, like you get that, that stage of upset and then angry and then all these different levels. And I've seen myself go through them,
Yes.
So I just think that it is something that we have to get through.
Yeah.
And do you have I'm going to let you have your final thoughts for your final minutes and maybe some phone numbers that people can get in touch with you. So Joe. And we can't wait for our tour, by the way.
Oh, no, I'm looking forward to showing you around. I think you'll be impressed and, give us something else to talk about when we come back.
I have all kinds of great ideas. Just put me in a think tank.
I think, a lot of times the best ideas do come from outside. That's a great way to look at it. But, the programs continue. The people, I think the most important thing that I want people to understand, and yet this is the activists included, people in the jail are safe. And it's my job and the job of the staff there, and they do a great job, to keep them safe. And we're doing everything that we can to do that. It's been more challenging recently, but we are also providing not just the medical care and the nutrition that they need, but the anti-violence programs, the anti-drug programs, those types of things, the spiritual things that they need down there. So, we are a little town, and I'm optimistic. You know, I hear repeatedly, we're going to get through this. I know that we will. I'm an optimist, but things at the jail are as good as they could be.
What jail was it that was sharing the cup? Was it one of the prisons where?
Yeah, I had heard about that. That was.
I saw that on TV. They were. Yeah, was it out west?
Yeah, it was out west, and what they were trying to do was infect themselves.
Yeah.
Because they were under the impression, and I did. You know, it's a logical impression. They watched the news. Oh, all you need to do is get the virus, and you're out.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's crazy.
Out in more ways than one.
Right.
Like death.
Right. Yeah. Possibly. Yeah.
So, and Tim, what about you? Some final thoughts? And I know you both have some great programs and stuff too. So I encourage everybody to go on the websites. There's just a slew of information there.
Yeah. No, thanks, Sharon. I appreciate the opportunity to come in tonight, especially with Joe. We do lots of things together. And people I don't think understand the things that we do. You know, and try and prevent crime, try and prevent things, and try to help people, really what it comes down to. So if anybody has any questions, any thoughts, never hesitate to call the DA's office at 508-584-8120.
Give it one more time.
Maybe 508-584-8120. Or go on PlymouthDA.com. And there's information there. I know we talk about a lot of things that are very serious, and we deal with a lot of, you're right, a lot of heavy things. But there's a lot of really good people out there that are working and growing in the right direction. You should understand that every single day. There's good people, the sheriff's department, there's good people, the DA's office, the police, the fire, the first responders. Every day, you know, they may not be in the front page of the newspaper, but we're all better for it. And I'm proud to be working with those men and women, making sure we can try to keep people safe in our community. And thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight.
And I'm just so happy. I mean, for us, I just know that, again, not anything to do with real estate. I'm just so fortunate, I feel, that we've gotten this opportunity to get to know you a little bit better and let our WATD listeners know you a little bit better, because it's scary to hear about the sheriff and the DA. And I love how down to earth all of you are. And too, I look at Ken, and honestly, the three of you really do have very similar personalities. And, you know, you're all the guys that are at the top of the ladder that are taking care of all of us. And I guess that's why you're in the position you're in, because you can be calm, cool, and collected when people like me who are crazy are not calm, cool, and collected. So,
down to our last 10 seconds, Sharon.
Okay, so I thank you very, very much for that. Ken, your final thoughts for the last 5 seconds here?
Don't screw it up.
Don't screw it up. So you can listen to this on talkrealestateroundtable.com. And again, famous words from Ken McCormick, acting chief in Pembroke. Don't screw it up. We'll be back next week, guys, and we're only on until 7:30 next week.